The spring air carries the scent of rice paddies as Lee Byung-chul counts out 30,000 won in a small office in Daegu, Korea on March 1, 1938. At just 28 years old, this son of a wealthy landowner is about to make a decision that will echo through history. He's founding a trading company named for the Korean words meaning 3 stars, to trade noodles and other local goods, exporting them to China and beyond. Samsung's early years were built on absolute basics: dried fish, vegetables, noodles, and other staples that sustained Korean families. Lee wasn't chasing glamorous industries. He was meeting fundamental human needs during a time when Korea struggled under Japanese colonial rule. The company moved its main office to Seoul in 1947, and by 1950, Samsung was already one of the 10 biggest trading companies in Korea. But everything changed when war erupted across the peninsula. When the North Korean army conquered Seoul in 1950, Samsung's founder Lee Byung-chul was forced to relocate his business to Busan. Instead of abandoning everything he had built, he carried with him something hidden away for survival. Time for a branded quick quiz. According to company lore, what precious records did he sew into his coat before fleeing the city? The massive influx of U.S. troops and equipment into Busan over the next year and a half proved highly beneficial to Lee's trading company. From a refugee zone, he restarted Samsung by trading surplus U.S. Army supplies like blankets and penicillin. What looked like complete destruction became the foundation for unprecedented growth. Right after the war, Lee established a sugar factory in Busan before diversifying into textiles, constructing Korea's largest woolen mill at the time. Each expansion addressed Korea's desperate need for self-sufficiency: sugar to reduce import dependence, textiles to fuel early export growth. But Lee's most audacious gamble came in the late 1960s. Korea had no electronics industry, no technological expertise, virtually no global reputation in manufacturing. Logic said, stick to fish and fabric. Despite the lack of technology and resources, Samsung Group was known to the South Korean public primarily as a trading company specialized in fertilizers and sweeteners. On January 13, 1969, Samsung Electronics Corporation was born in Suwon, South Korea. Initially, the company produced black and white televisions in partnership with foreign firms. Samsung Electronics Manufacturing had 45 employees and about $250,000 in sales in 1970, making household electronics exclusively. And here's the answer to that earlier question. Those hidden records were his company ledgers. Even after Samsung grew into a global giant, Lee held on to those original account books he once sewed into his coat, reminders that everything could vanish again. What might look like sentiment was, in truth, the mindset that fueled his boldest risks. His willingness to leave everything behind wasn't recklessness. It was the survival instinct that made him reinvent Samsung again and again. Over the next 3 decades, Samsung diversified into food processing, textiles, insurance, securities, and retail. It was in the 1970s that Samsung truly began to emerge as a global player, with electronics setting the stage for future dominance. Today, Samsung has become something Lee could barely have imagined from that refugee camp in Busan. They're not just a tech company, they're the invisible infrastructure of modern life. Your phone's screen, your computer's memory, your smart TV's brain. Samsung likely manufactured the components even if their name isn't visible. And those rice paddies near where Lee first counted out his 30,000 won? They're now home to Samsung's massive semiconductor facilities, where a single fabrication plant costs more than many countries' entire GDP. The man who died in Seoul in 1987 created something that literally manufactures the future. Lee's legacy reveals something profound about human potential. The greatest transformations don't come from those who never face destruction, but from people willing to sew their most precious possessions into their coat and start completely over. Strategic patience isn't about playing it safe. It's about being willing to lose everything you've built in order to build something even greater. If this transformation from trading dried fish to creating the world's technology has shown you Samsung in a completely new light, hit that like button and subscribe to Branded, where every brand has a backstory, and discover how today's global giant started as someone's impossible dream. Have you ever had a moment where losing everything actually opened up possibilities you never would have considered? Share your story in the comments section. Here at Branded, we share origin stories of the most fascinating connections between the biggest setbacks and greatest breakthroughs about global brands you know and love. Lee Byung-chul's story proves that world-changing innovation often comes not from those born into comfort, but from someone willing to abandon everything familiar while never losing sight of a simple truth, that the future belongs to those who refuse to be limited by how things currently are. Next time on Branded, we're traveling to 1891 Chicago, where a young salesman started giving away promotional freebies as incentives, only to discover that customers cared more about his throwaway bonus than his actual product. The pivot he made from that moment created an empire that would stretch from baseball stadiums to space missions, and the family obsession that drove it will completely reframe how you think about simple ideas becoming global phenomena. Thank you for joining this incredible journey from refugee camp to semiconductor empire. Your engagement drives everything we create here at Branded, and stories like Samsung's prove that behind every piece of technology in your pocket lives someone who dared to reimagine what was possible. Until next time.